My name is Clara Towson, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
I am Francisca George, and I'm a friend of the show.
Perfect.
Hi, my name is Susan Leemans, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom. Yeah.
My name is Zainab Sammaz, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Hey guys, my name is Sasha Vickery, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Hi, my name is Lloyd Harris, and I'm a friend of the show.
Perfect.
Hi, my name is Jan Faria, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Yes.
Take one. Well done.
Hi, my name is Jasmine Paolini, and I'm a friend of the show.
Wow, Jasmine, you got it in one time.
Ready? Play.
Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, whatever. Well, wherever you're tuning in from, bear in mind most of our audience is North American, European. I think we're all at least today, even you, Van. Look where you are.
Sorry, I think my mic was having a little bit of issues.
All
But
good, I
yeah,
can hear you clearly. 1 o'clock where you are?
yeah, two actually.
2, okay.
Yeah.
That does make French Open viewing a little tricky, right?
Yeah, it does.
Especially if you want to watch Griekspoor, which is the only sort of exciting match today.
Yeah, some of the early action is difficult for me to catch. The matches that start at 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. my time, those are going to be always tough. And a lot of women's matches I haven't been able to watch this tournament because of that. But I try to get up around 5ish so I could catch everything.
Yeah,
It's
right.
pretty-
Well, the good news or bad news is that you'll always get to see pretty much, I'm guessing, the Philippe Chatrier night session match, which I don't know if anyone's mentioned this, but coincidentally has always been a men's match. We won't dwell on that debate for now. We can talk about that some other time. But what we can dwell on, even if it will be quite brief, is the Djokovic straight sets win Vanch over Misolic. Was the match as comfortable as the scoreline suggests?
Yeah, for the most part, it was pretty comfortable. I think there was one moment where Djokovic had like 9 break points, and he didn't take it, and he didn't get the break until the 4th game and on the 10th break point where he just like scrambled, got this lob back, and like defended really well, and then Misolic missed an overhead, and it was pretty much there was no adversity for Djokovic after that. I would say, except for one game in the second set where he had to save break point down 1-2, and then once he held there, the rest of the way he only dropped 2 more games. So I think it was there was some good workout in the first set and a half, a lot of running, a lot of like just sort of backhand to backhand exchanges before he sort of just maneuvered his way around the court, like just worked on a few things that he's probably it was a good practice for the second week. Like I don't think there was any sort of moment where you thought Djokovic is losing this. Like there was no moment in the match. So pretty good draw for Novak in the first week.
Pretty good draw indeed, Damien. Was there anything Misolic could have done today?
Not really. I mean, obviously he's had a very memorable run, best form of his career, but had to end some point. I don't even know if he was like a little maybe overwhelmed by the occasion or not, because the match just wasn't close enough for us to see it. Yeah, obviously Novak has had, pretty good draw is a massive understatement. It's probably the easiest draw I've ever seen to make a slam quarterfinal. But it's Djokovic. That he needed, probably not. Obviously, it could have been like slightly tougher, but does it change much if it's Shapovalov today instead of Misolic? Doubt it. Does it change much if it's Medvedev instead of Norrie in the next round? Again, highly doubt it. So I think, that's kind of how it worked out just in terms of his overall quarter. And yes, Ashley, Novak this event has the easiest draw like possible, to be honest. Which again, I don't really think he needed it. But when we saw that quarter, yeah, it's kind of impossible for him to lose in the first 4 rounds. And that's still how it looks.
Yeah, I saw somebody respond when I suggested this the other day. Oh, but he might have, I think it was, is it Sinner in the semis and Alcaraz in the final, or the other way around? And it's like, well, yeah, of course, you're seeded 6. You're going to have, we're not interested in how easy the semi-final and final might be. We're kind of interested in how the first 4 rounds are, because that's where sort of a 6th seed, if he gets Zhao in the first round, or he gets, maybe someone like, could he get Draper in the quarters? Yes. I think his quarterfinal will be Zverev, right? Is that what you just said, Damien?
Yes, Zverev.
So yeah, sure. Zverev followed by Rune or Alcaraz, followed by Rune or Alcaraz, whichever way around it is. Of course, he'll be in Sinner's half, won't he? Because they both played today. So yeah, Sinner, yeah, sure. But it's all when you're seeded 6 or when you're seeded 5 or below. It's all about who are your first 4 matches going to be against, and they have been relatively comfortable. He's going to be playing Cam Norrie next, Vanch, after Cam Norrie came through in straight sets over Fernley. This was kind of a match that we probably circled for a potential 5-setter, but in the end, it was pretty comfortable for Cam, or at least the scoreline suggests that, Vanch.
Yeah, Cam was the more comfortable player throughout. I think Fernley was struggling a lot on his second serve today, and just in general was struggling to hit through Cam in these slow, heavier conditions. Cam was defending really well. He was, the balls were just staying a lot lower, which I think really helped him, especially on those like forehand cross, backhand trades, where Norrie was just able to keep the ball so low and just out of Fernley's strike zone, and then he was going big down the line himself. He just felt really comfortable. I think being the aggressor out there for actually a lot of it, and that's not how Cam usually likes to kind of go about it. But I saw him taking more initiative today, being like more proactive in the rallies. He was serving much better than Fernley was, so it was a big lift because Fernley struggled mightily on his second serve. I think by the end of the second set, he already had 12 double faults. So, yeah, that was a bit tough from Jacob's point of view. But then the second set got pretty tricky because Norrie goes up 4-love, and then actually like Fernley, he starts really hitting out, and there was one stretch where he hit like eight winners and 10 points, and then he ends up retrieving both the breaks back, and then it gets to this tie break, and then Norrie, I think, was just a little more consistent in the tie break, and then he had all the momentum getting into the third set. I think Fernley ran out of gas a little bit. So overall, like it was it wasn't the 5-set epic or anything that we were. I don't know if we were expecting an epic, but we were definitely expecting it to be, a little more complicated, a little bit more of the unknown because they haven't played each other before. But yeah, so now against Djokovic, it's a whole nother level up. But at the same time, they did already play in Geneva in the semifinals, and so they played each other like 5 times.
Damien, is Norrie doing anything better? Is he performing better in terms of, obviously his results are pretty good in recent weeks, as Vance just mentioned, there was a semi-final in Geneva where he pushed Novak, and now here 4th round French Open, which I'm pretty sure is his furthest ever. Or is it just that he beats Daniel Medvedev and then it's like, well, okay, now you're probably reaching the 4th round?
I guess both things could be true. Is Cam doing anything like new? Not really. But then again, his whole game is a mystery. He was like number 8 in the world, and it's about 2-3 years from here, and suddenly he's nowhere close to potentially winning a big title, to touching all these top players. Well, unless you were talking about Medvedev here, but again, Medvedev on clay, not really, I guess, and not anymore. So to me, like, his game is just a little volatile right now. He's often stuck in 2 minds between 2 different game plans. He doesn't have the consistency of the past, but at the same time, he's not really like all that comfortable attacking. So once these issues are gone in a particular match, once he can kind of, I don't know, find himself on the court, I guess he can still apply it more or less as well as he used to a couple of years ago. So yeah, I just don't really think he has a chance against Novak, mostly because, well, it's Novak, and their history does not really suggest that he will be pushing him, even if he did take that set in Geneva. He's also like, just at the moment, he's very much not, I don't know, just it hasn't been a strength for him recently to come out and play a match that's consistent from start to finish, that does not consist of any deeps, that again doesn't really have that kind of like into minds feeling to it, at least for a while. So I think he will be punished for that eventually, but it's still a very good run and some sort of return to a higher ranking position.
That Geneva match sort of felt like Novak was sort of the better player throughout, and somehow Norrie does drag himself into the match by winning that second set. But again, Novak just puts on the afterburners in the third. I watched most of that encounter, and it always felt like Novak was the better player. But as can happen, especially when you get to a tiebreak, it can often go either way. And it went 3, but as soon as that third set began, there was only going to be one winner. Vance, is there only going to be one winner again when it comes to their match in about 48 hours from now? And also, what can Cam do?
It's going to be difficult to imagine Cam winning 3 sets. That's for sure. I mean, I mean, 1 set, sure. Like that's that's possible just because he plays this kind of very physical brand of tennis where he can extend a lot of points. He can wear you down a little bit in those longer rallies. He can, the shot quality on his forehand and backhand can differ so much sometimes, where he's keeping the ball really low on the backhand, and then a little extra time on the clay on the forehand gives him some chances to maybe use the width a little bit better, come forward. I think he's been more proactive at coming to the net. So that's definitely something that he did a little bit more in Geneva. But I mean, also conditions allowed it to happen because it was much quicker in altitude, and you kind of just, some of his serves where he was having a few more percentage of unreturned serves, I think, in that second set and at times in the first set than before. But I think I think it's going to be tough to expect no dips if he does take a little bit more risk. And I think that's something he will probably have to do, is he will have to take more risks earlier on in points. He will have to use his forehand down the line earlier on in points to kind of open the court and keep Djokovic guessing, moving, and keep Djokovic involved in those really long physical exchanges where he can't just, win points outright with a serve and forehand, which is mostly what Novak is trying to do as he gets older, right? He's trying to conserve energy a little bit more and, not like just wear guys out like he would in 2012. So maybe I think Cam can make it physical. He can make it more. It can be more of a test certainly than today for Djokovic. But do I actually see him winning? No, not really. I don't even think the most optimistic Norrie person will be like, "Oh, he's got a serious chance of winning this."
James, where are you? Maybe he's got a shout for. This is a funny image, of course, because this is the end of their Rome encounters. They've played twice on clay. Once obviously in Geneva recently, and this one was an amusing one because they had a frosty exchange at the net after Djokovic was annoyed with Cam for having the temerity of hitting a smash that went kind of near his feet.
And the camoning as well. He was not happy about the camoning either.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, that was 2023. I'm not saying this is a path to victory, but it is a possibility for players against Novak now compared to 21, 22, and even 23 to some extent, where you can at least extend rallies against him. And maybe we've seen Casper Ruud, for example, beat Novak once or twice in recent years. I think twice in the last.
Yeah, but like, who exactly have we seen do that and win against? Like, to say that this is the only thing that Casper did against him would be a massive understatement of what Casper did in that match. Like, he was hitting his backhand down the line so well, and that, nah. I mean,
talking about
I don't think we've really seen anybody just grind Novak to death.
Are there players
out of 5 sets? I don't know anybody who's grinded him down. Like
I wouldn't disagree with what you said, but I just don't feel like we've seen literally anybody do that and actually come out victorious.
I just think that there is a chance of a Rublev, for example, now being able to do that against Novak, that they couldn't do it 2 years ago.
That's a good example of a player who could do that right now. Yeah.
Right. We'll see. Maybe Cam can get the first set like he did at Wimbledon and then take it on from there. But of course, that Wimbledon match also went pretty downhill pretty fast for the Brit. Coming back to the draw, and we'll get when I see lots of comments in the live chat, and some of them are super relevant for what we're talking about right now. Some are kind of looking more further down the line. Although I think there was one comment from Ghosty about players going out early that I think we can shoehorn in now. I think he's basically kind of frustrated with maybe how the men's tournament thus far has panned out. We've had Cerundolo going out and Casper Ruud, but we haven't had sort of, Sinner, of course, or Carlos being pushed to 5 sets and on the brink of a defeat. Don't know if you want to address that, Damien.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's anything exceptional. I mean, if we're talking about big upsets, it's Casper, really. And that's also injury related. So, yeah, I don't think it's been anything outstanding. Of course, you mentioned Cerundolo, of course, Fields, but, these are still like seeds number 18, seeds number 14. Yeah,
At
I mean,
any
we haven't really
slam,
seen a
when
crazy
was the
number
last
of upsets.
time we had a huge name go out in rounds 1 or 2? Because I think Carlos went out
Are
in
you
round
talking French or any slam?
No, any slam. Any slam.
Carlos Botic.
US Open.
Yeah, but that was round 3,
US
wasn't it?
No.
Yeah, US Open last year we lost Carlos in
That was
round
the
2.
second round.
Novak in round 3.
Oh, okay. I thought that was round 3 for some reason. All right, let's
No,
go
he
with
beat Lee
French
2
then.
and then lost to Botic. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, if
No,
we're
it was
looking at
round,
it,
it was round 3. Yeah, it was round 3, round of 32.
Carlos, no.
Oh no, I'm looking at a different tournament. Tell a lie.
Carlos
what?
beat Lee 2 and lost to Botic in the second round.
Yeah.
But if we're just looking at like what necessarily would have to happen for this event to fall apart, obviously it's Alcaraz and Sinner. But even these guys who are behind them, like Musetti, like Rune, like Draper, like Djokovic, like Zverev, they're all in the tournament, bar Ruud. So it's really Ruud only. Fritz doesn't count. Sorry, Fritz doesn't count. It's like the same if we counted Medvedev or Tsitsipas. Like Fritz doesn't count. I know that he was seeded number 4, but it literally does not matter. I'm just talking about the guys who are Sinner, Alcaraz, and then you have that chasing pack of like 5-6 players, depending if you count Rune. Of all of them, only Ruud has gone out, and that's injury. So to me, I don't feel like it's been an upset-heavy event, no. Especially on the women's side, but even on the men's.
Regarding that Fritz loss, I think, I don't want to sound clever after the event, but I predicted Altmaier to win that, and I think if we'd have put a straw poll amongst the talking tennis people, I think it would have called it a 50-50, and some may have had Altmaier's favourite. But
I picked Altmaier too, yeah. I mean,
but not like Marajan versus Alcaraz in Rome 23 with that kind of level of wow, this is the biggest shock of the century. Vanch, do you want to add anything before we move on to the other encounters from today?
No, not really. I mean, like all those other contenders are still in the tournament, so I don't feel like the men's draw is like crashed or anything like that. So no, it did surprise me, and so did Road. But those are like the only names, and Road is mostly just knee injury, really. So
yeah. Let's come to a pair of matches, one of which, due to the time, you would have struggled to watch it live, Vanch, but it was the standout match of the day in terms of drama. Griekspoor against Ethan Quinn. Thoughts on that match, Vanch?
Yeah, I mean, I was impressed that Quinn managed to push it to 5. He took the third set, and he's been playing pretty well on the clay. Like, I mean, I watched his match against Carlos in Barcelona, and he has, his forehand does really well on the surface. He's good at closing in at the net. He's got very good, like, just his movement and experience on the clay is like, it's a very solid result to get to the third round here and push talent this far. He wasn't really that close to winning sets 4 and 5, but in the 5th set, he made a good go of it after he went down double break. He forced Griekspoor to, just kind of to serve the match out at 5-4, and it was a good showing that he managed to push a top seed this far. And I think in future clay court seasons he can do much better than third round even. I don't know how much better, it just depends on the draw and stuff, but I feel like this is a guy who's going to be top 50 at some point. So yeah, pretty high on Quinn and his potential.
Are you high on Quinn, Damien?
Relatively. I mean, I don't know if you can really like go much deeper at Roland Garros in next editions. I think that's kind of wild, but draw dependent. I mean, he should have lost to Grigor playing on one leg in the opening round. Let's not forget that. It was a pretty favorable draw for him. But yeah, I mean, he made a massive leap more or less around November last year when he won Champagne. That was like the first week when his tennis really comes together. He's not playing like a headless horseman. He actually is using some tennis IQ on the court and not just blasting his rocket forehand and hoping that it's going to stick. And this entire season, I mean, he's really just doing just that. Probably has secured the top 100 already, not mathematically yet, but very likely. Actually, I think by now it's almost 100%. So obviously a great event for him. And I was not expecting that he would push talent like this, but they basically played the same game, just massive shots at each other, serve +1 forehands. Obviously Quinn is going to be a little more like, was going to go into the forecourt a little bit more. But in the end, yeah, just the physical domination that Talon had in the 5th and 4th, that was kind of too much for Ethan eventually. And from 2-5, sure, he got one break back, but there was only one winner really from there. So Griekspoor basically took over for Cerundolo in this draw. And he's going to be a threat going forward as well.
A word on either the match today from Griekspoor's perspective, Vanch, or just his year and how solid he is in general.
Yeah, I mean, he made the Masters 1000 quarterfinal in Indian Wells, which he hadn't done before. So that was a good step for him. He had that win over Zverev, and he felt like that had been coming because he'd been knocking on the door for a while in Shanghai and Roland Garros last year, 4-1 double breakup. He almost beat Zverev again in Munich when Zverev won the title there. And in general, he always has chances against Zverev. Like whenever they play each other, he always has the kind of game, whether it be to get the job done, but he doesn't always deliver. And most of the times he hasn't. They played 9 times. It's like a 7-2 head-to-head for Zverev. But at the same time, this is somebody who is, as far as Zverev's concerned, is probably not somebody that he wanted to play. So that bodes well for him going forward. I think he's fresh enough physically that he can do it again, most likely, and maybe put himself in a position or come close to winning. Whether he'll actually do it or not, though, that's a different story. But in general, I think his floor has gotten a little bit better this year. He still has a few of those odd losses, but I think he can be proud of the last 3 months, maybe.
Yeah, Marrakesh final as well, albeit at 250, but also on clay. The beginning of the European clay season, let's specify that. Talking of Zverev, though, against Cobolli, I thought he might have 1 or 2 problems. I thought he would drop a set, for example, to Cobolli, and maybe should have dropped the set, bearing in mind the Italian was up a break in the second set, Damien.
Yeah, I mean, up a break on clay doesn't really mean much, but in the second set, tiebreak Zverev definitely went into that very, extra passive mode of his, and the serve kind of got him out of it. So that was the only moment of the match where anything could have happened. Yeah, it was disappointing that this was a free setter. It's kind of a theme of the day on the men's side that basically, just one match, I think, ended up going more than 3 sets, and some of them we were expecting a lot more from. This definitely was one of them. That this was going to be like the first possible test, either Cobolli or Arnaldi. Obviously, Cobolli ended up winning that match, and then basically I didn't really care which one of them was going to be a bigger threat for Zverev. Seemed like both of them could be a bit of a roadblock. But Fravio kind of maybe ran out of it as well after the Hamburg title run. That definitely isn't easy to follow up, especially with the best of 5 here. So that was not the test. Hopefully the 4th round will not disappoint like this. And, given their recent history, I guess I would kind of like them. I kind of like their chances to at least be close again. It's just kind of funny because it feels like in Indian Wells, Talon won because he got Zverev to be so passive in the last few games. And in some other matches, he's basically losing because Zverev is so passive and he just can't hit through him. So it's I don't know. I really have no idea what to think, but kind of like Vansh, I have this sentiment that, if they come to a very, very close battle, it might be that Talon falters again. Last year was a good example of that. 4-1 in the 5th. I've said it before on the channel. I think on any other surface, he wins it simply because he would just serve it out, lose 1 break, but who cares? But when the hands got really shaky on clay, it was impossible for him to do it. So yeah, I kind of have a similar feeling that he might get close, but just not convert.
We all think, I'm thinking exactly the same way as Damien, really. I think it could be close. It could even go 5, like the one last year. I don't think, or I hope for Talon's sake, he doesn't go up a double break in said 5th set and lose it again like that. But I think one way or another Zverev is coming through. What do you think, Vanch?
Yeah, you have to favor him in the best of 5 format to just kind of weather Talon out again. I do think Talon will have his chances. I do think it should be more or less close. It can even be, he can even have his chances and lose in 3, but that's I just kind of would just lean Zverev just based on their past history and just based on what we know about both players. It's going to be hard to imagine
That poll seems to be about representative as well. 68% going for Zverev. That feels about right to me.
Yeah, maybe even, a little. I don't know how to even say it, but just should be higher, probably. I mean,
yeah, maybe.
68
Of course, there could be
yeah.
could be support there, but the other thing with this is even if if 100 people are asked and 100 people all slightly favour Zverev, even if we're all saying it's going to be a close affair, there should really be that poll coming out at 100%.
Yeah, that's true. Polls like this
So
are
one of those things in a poll that
it is a flaw. Yeah, I mean, basically, it could be like 90% Zverev, but 90% of these people just think he's going to win a very close contest. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Right, exactly. All right, let's go back to the draw. I don't think let's have a quick look at the live chat to see if there's anything relevant. The question is, does Zverev actually beat Novak? Of course, that is a little bit further down the line, but I think Dave, he's already done it once this year, although, of course, there is an asterisk by that. But yeah, Zverev on clay is the favourite against Novak, right?
It's at least close.
Okay.
Yeah,
I don't
it's
know.
gonna be close, but
you want to see how their fourth round go before
50-50 slight nod to Zverev, I guess, for now. Let's see how their next rounds are.
Sure,
if it was a French Open final, I would probably be leaning Novak. A French Open quarterfinal, and I'm leaving Zverev.
That's also fair, yeah.
Yeah. I want to see how their fourth rounds go, but I would actually slightly favor Djokovic, just like nerve management.
Okay. Yeah, Djokovic has certainly crept up our thinking, I think, over the last week or two. Obviously winning that title in Geneva, the easy draw. Suddenly then he does sort of come close to being some people's, or maybe even many people's, third favourite. But we'll deal with that as and when it arrives. Let's come back to the draw and some of the results from today. Let's have a look at this next section, which includes João Fonseca, Jack Draper. I watched this match from start to finish. Vanch, I've not spoken to you about this match, so I'll come to you first. It was a little bit frustrating if you wanted this to, say, go 4 or 5, just in terms of the patterns of play that were becoming quite repetitive, as in, like, João would get a big forehand to hit and was often just going into the lefty forehand of Draper. The drop shots from Draper were, in my opinion, somewhere between being average and not average, but below average, and yet they were still winning the points. Draper served very well. Draper played very well, and I'm not taking anything away from him, but from João's perspective, I do think he could have done some things differently and better to at least have laid a glove on Jack.
Yeah, it was a little bit frustrating to watch the same patterns and rallies unfold over and over again.
Yeah.
At the same time, yeah, I mean, he will learn a lot from it and all that, but it just felt like it didn't, like, not much different from Indian Wells, like, after the first set, just because, every time João had a forehand look, like, either inside out or inside, or like middle of the court, he was going big to the Draper forehand, and then Draper would get the rally back on his terms by going down the line. And then he'd have a lot of options on the backhand. Like, he can either hit a drop shot, he can either go back across court, or he can go big down the line. Like, it opened up so much court for him. And João isn't such a great mover right now. So when Draper has him on a string and has him on a stretch, it feels like the rally is just completely on his terms. And then Draper is also very good at absorbing Fonseca's pace. So just straight up, pace and power is not going to bother Draper. So I just felt like, and then on the serve, it was just so hard for for João to get into, like, dig his teeth into many of those service games, because it was basically like the serve +1 or many unreturned serves or just easy free points, like, that he was just winning off the bat. There was one moment at the end of the second set when Fonseca had a couple of break points to make it 5-all, but then Draper just smashes down an ace on one of them. And then on the
other one, though, Vanch, he did have a chance. He was slightly up in the rally, Vanch, and he went pretty big on a forehand that just went 50 centimeters long, maybe a couple of inches long, and that was that. But it was the only time in the entire match that Draper was under foot on. He didn't even get a deuce apart from that one game.
I feel like he really needed to make Draper play on that second break point, because Jack was getting tight. Yeah. And he kind of got out of that game. He got out of that game easier than he should have, in my opinion. But
he also got Draper, and I think on that one where he hit the ace, that you just, or was it ace or on the turn serve and ace, wasn't it? I think that
Ace
was
down the tee, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was not a second serve, but the first serve hit the net cord and landed in, and it could have gone anywhere off that net cord. And I just thought, you're like, okay, let's, just mentally, I think that's kind of like, okay, I've got another shot at this, and now I'm going to get. I had a feeling he'd get his first serve in, and I didn't necessarily predict an ace off it, but yeah, but that was it. We are maybe clutching at straws, are we, Damien?
Oh, you're very much clutching at straws. I think you were the entire match. I didn't listen to the commentary, but just so there was a message in the chat as well, right? But obviously, yeah, I understand the sentiment. I mean, you were expecting a classic. You were expecting something that was going to just be the main talking point after today, and it's not really. I mean, it's just basically Joao playing the same match as in Indian Wells, indeed. I kind of question the quality of the advice he received, because it was just straight up going full power at the Draper forehand, and that does nothing. In fact, very often it even comes back to hurt him, either on the approach or just off the baseline, especially on the approach maybe. Anytime he just went to the net after blasting a big shot at the Draper forehand, I already saw that huge passing shot coming from Jack. Most of the time it landed in as well. So yeah, I mean, definitely didn't really learn his lesson from Indian Wells, and well, it's an experience moment for him. I mean, obviously, I think considering our expectations heading into Roland Garros, I would still say he slightly overperformed them by just beating Hurkacz. That's and also beating Hurkacz so convincingly. So it definitely wasn't a bad event for him, but we're gonna have to wait for for him to just start gathering up all this experience from all the matches and events and the players he's facing. Presently, Draper just knows exactly how to play him and deliver the clinic, barring that one game that you guys just were talking about. That was the one where, I mean, he does feel nerves at deuce. There's a double fault. There's that shaky forehand pass that he probably should make, because again, after a drop shot, Fonseca just does not expect it whatsoever. He wasn't reading it at all. So that was maybe the one. But I don't have a problem with how Fonseca played that first break point either. So if this is the only chance that we're talking about really in this match, then we are clutching at straws.
Bigger picture stuff, Vanch, on Joao Fonseca, and then we'll do some bigger picture stuff on Jack as well. But bigger picture stuff, Vanch, on Joao is it's still been a good tournament compared to where we were at in Estoril and in Rome when he's losing to Marajan and De Jong. I think both matches were straight sets on the back of some positivity despite his loss to Tommy Paul in Madrid. But bigger picture stuff, his year has had a few bumps, sure. Rio first round exit, maybe losing to Sonego after the win over Rublev felt a bit flat, but it was a super close match and that can happen. And then even this slam run here at the French Open, I mean, 2 good wins. Yes, we probably did think he would beat Herbert, but to beat Hurkacz in the way he did, to lose in straight sets to Jack, would have been fine. It's just because of the patterns of play. But bigger picture stuff, it's still, despite those bumps, we're still going in the right direction. I mean, 5 slam matches this year and 3 wins at the slam, 2 slams we've had.
Yeah, for me, a third round result at RG for Joao is pretty good. That's I would say he's still trending in a pretty good direction. He's won a couple of 125s this year. He's won the 250 in Buenos Aires.
Yeah,
he's still on track for that sort of what we're predicting, inside the top 50, around 40, 30 in the world. He can definitely still achieve all of that. And getting to the third round here is as an 18-year-old he's in pretty elite company, right? It's Rafa, Carlos, I think Roddick, Gasquet, Chorich.
Or not Chorich, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah. I mean, it's still pretty elite company, but besides Chorich and I guess Gasquet when he was younger, sure was a
firing shots at Borna Chorich here. Nice.
But yeah. So I mean, it's not gonna. It doesn't guarantee him to just leap the rankings suddenly, but as far as the clay court season goes, at least the South America swing went well. He had a few off weeks maybe, Estoril and just before RG. But at the same time, he still almost beat Paul. He was close in that match. So I don't really think there's too many negatives.
Right. What about Jack Draper, Damien? Funny enough, just looking at his path to the fourth round, and this is probably me because it's probably just a measure of how far Jack has come in a very short space of time. I saw Sean. I loved what you said about Jack just now. It's sort of, it's quite difficult to get used to Jack Draper being, one of the 5 best players in the world and probably one of the 3 best this year. I'm not sure where he's in the live rankings, but probably around about 3, I would imagine, behind Yannick and maybe Carlos as well. And yet this run to the fourth round, I've not been that impressed. I thought against Bellucci, yes, I got your point about him basically being the better player throughout. I think he was 5-1, wasn't he, down to Bellucci in the third set? But from that moment onwards, he dominated the Italian. I thought against Monfils, I thought he looked shaky and really probably should have gone 5. But would have probably still ultimately prevailed.
Mm-hmm.
And then today, he did play very well, but we've mentioned some of the Zhao tactical errors at least. And yet here we are, he's in the fourth round and probably a hot favourite to beat Bublik, Damien.
I mean, in terms of pure efficiency of play, he's a monster right now. He's just going to win matches, whatever you throw at him, really. The bigger question is whether he can beat Sinner. Like, that's kind of really what everybody in this event aspires, to do. Just look at where you're going to play Sinner and Alcaraz. You want to get to that round, and then you want to give it a shot. But yeah, I mean, he's definitely like pretty close to Sinner in many ways right now. Maybe down to Taylor Fritz, what I was saying at the beginning of the season, that he can be this year's Taylor Fritz. He's kind of more Sinnerish in many ways, and yeah, just simply how he never really cracks, and basically it takes an incredible effort to beat him, to hit him off the court, to actually finish him off. And the base level has just gotten so incredibly high that even when he's not perfect, like in the matches against Bellucci or Monfils, he still fights his way through. And Bublik, it's going to be quite interesting. Is it one of these players who can be just super high ceiling, blast his backhand all over the court for 3 sets and beat him? Maybe. But it would just require a titanic effort from Bublik. And that's a player who usually struggles to produce that kind of titanic effort, especially over the course of 3 sets. So obviously the favorite is pretty clear there.
Did Rocha just kind of run out of steam today, Damien? I mean, I know you could talk about Bublik having a 5-set match in the previous round, but I think Rocha had back-to-back 5-setters and probably just as significantly as his first ever Grand Slam main draw. It gets to, I think, 5-all or even obviously 5-6. And then I think he gets broken decisively, doesn't he? Yeah, for 7-5, of course. But I think Rocha was serving at 5-6 and probably close to pushing to a tiebreak. But from that moment onwards, Bublik just ran away with it.
Maybe, but I don't think it really mattered too much. I mean, Bublik is a monster right now. Turin, the clay awakening is real. And if he just maintains it, why not? He can be competitive in the next round as well. Obviously, he lost 2 sets to Alex de Minaur 2-6, right? And then he only turns it on. So it's still Bublik, but it's pretty impressive that he was able to just come back and deliver, a strong performance from start to finish again.
They have actually played a couple of times before, Draper and Bublik. By the way, what is Bublik's deepest run at a slam? I'm feeling like round 4.
Yes, Wimbledon 2023, 5 sets with Rublev.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that included that mammoth shot from Rublev. That's what I remember that match about. But yeah,
it actually wasn't that mammoth, but
yeah, it was the scream, and I think a lot of the reactions on Twitter. Maybe I got carried away with that.
It was just the fact that Bublik roars, but the shot wasn't that good. Like the fact that he just roared as if he hit the best shot ever that Rublev is never gonna get. That's on him. It's only his reaction that made the clip viral.
Yeah. So, of course, this is 2 round 4s now, obviously with the French Open, but on top of that, Wimbledon, then 3rd round in New York, and then a bunch of 2nd rounds in Australia. But Vange, does he have a chance of going further than he's ever been before?
It's going to be difficult for him to keep that level of focus and discipline and consistency over the course of 3 out of 5 against Jack, because Jack right now is just super efficient. He's just super reliable when it comes to these baseline patterns where he just feels so comfortable. His forehand is so heavy. He's just, soaking up whatever pace you give him really nicely. Like he's just taking care of business. He might get a little bit of tight here and there, but usually he still has a big enough cushion when he gets tight that it's not really going to be an issue. I mean, Bublik, like the last 3 sets that he played against de Minaur were just crazy because he was serving huge and he was just being a grinder from the back of the court and mixing up a ton of variety and making de Minaur super uncomfortable. Against Draper, though, like the threat is probably greater because like the forehand is so big right now and he's serving too well that I don't know if Bublik will be able to just like keep that up as long as he needs to. So I don't really think it's going to be very super exciting or close match. Like I could see maybe one close set, but I struggle to see how this would be like some kind of an epic.
Of course, they have. There is one win there for Bublik, Damien, coming in the qualifying at Queen's, but they haven't counted that, of course, in the head-to-head. So, but they've never played on clay. That does narrow things a little bit, right, Damien, on clay?
I don't know. I mean, that only favors Jack typically, unless it's Madrid. But then again, Jack also almost won Madrid. That would only favor Jack in general. But, you know, Bublik has that clay awakening. Like, if Alexander Bublik plays 4 hours of amazing tennis from start to finish against Jack Draper, then he might as well beat him, to be honest. Like, it would be close. And if he does that, I'm just going to, like, fly to Paris and shake his hand or something like that. But it's Bublik. Like, it's never really going to happen, I don't think.
All right. I'm pretty much in agreement. I can see a 4-set win for Jack, for example. Okay, let's move to the final section of the draw when it comes to the men, at least. And it's the Jannik Sinner section, which would, of course, also included Arthur Fils. But sadly, the Frenchman's had to withdraw with a back injury that's also going to put his grass season and perhaps Wimbledon in doubt as well. So Rublev gets the walkover. Rublev goes into the 4th round where he'll play Jannik Sinner after Sinner wiped the floor with Jiří Lehecka today. I don't even find these... Yes, you can marvel at Sinner's level, but I don't know. Sometimes I find it a bit uncomfortable. I don't know what you think, Damien.
Honestly, there are 2 matches on the screen, and I think the bottom one was more exciting. Just the saga of Arthur Fils, how is he going to hold up against Rublev? Then he has the press conference, and we have some quotes from French TV. Yeah, I think it was a little more interesting for sure. Obviously, Sinner is a monster, and the efficiency is very different to Alcaraz, but I think they're both similarly out of this world. They are playing a very different sport to all the other 126 players in the draw. But this kind of a scoreline, I mean, it's Lehecka. He's supposed to be like making progress, going into the top 20 soon or something like that. And you watch this and, he's kind of out there, obviously so happy when he wins one game. And that's kind of amusing. But at the same time, you can see that he has zero belief that he is going to win this match. And it's obviously not how you beat someone like Sinner. After the match, I think he also said that only Alcaraz can beat him or something like that. And if the people that didn't like what Kasper said and did during the Rome clash with Jannik, they will also not appreciate Jiří today.
I didn't hear you say that, but I personally moved on pretty quickly from the Kasper Ruud comments. I think sometimes you just have to, just accept that the other guy plays phenomenally better than you. Anyway, but coming back to today, Vanch, Sinner against Lehecka, have you got anything to add before we look ahead to his clash with Rublev?
I wonder if scorelines like this just make it like seem like Sinner already just like has an aura. Like every time he just walks on the court and he plays players like this, it's like, are we already at a point where like players just come in thinking they have no belief, like they have just no chance? Because like the more this keeps on happening, the more I just feel like, I'm watching this and it's like Lehecka is trading ground strokes with Sinner and they're going like toe to toe, and then Jannik is just so much better at it. Like there really is not that much else to say. Like he just hits the ball better off of both wings, harder, deeper, a little bit faster, and then you just get these score lines. It's the same thing every time Sinner plays de Minaur. Like it's just there's just like nothing else to talk about. And then Sinner comes up against Carlos, and then Carlos can do all these million different things that the other players can't do.
What player, aside from even, I think I would include Novak. So not Novak, not Carlos. What player in the top 50, Damien, strikes you as, what, this guy could do something? We've never seen them play before. He's a jack in the box. He's tricky. He can do stuff that might be able to hurt Jannik. Let's talk about on a clay court as where we are right now.
You're talking about like this event, for example, or
in general? Actually, I was thinking in general. So it could be a player that's out. I'm thinking of maybe a Madashan or someone, but
I mean, obviously there's still Zverev in the event. There's still Draper, but in the grand scheme of things, like we've seen some relatively close Cerundolos in Rome, for example.
Yeah,
I don't know, but obviously it's
maybe
difficult.
Mensik on a hard court.
Sure, you have to throw some curveballs. I mean, you can't just play him, off the ground, do nothing, and just trade. Yeah, like Vanch said, just trade ground strokes with him because you're not gonna be better than him at that kind of game. It's simply impossible. So Rublev absolutely has no chance because he will just do the same and try to play shot for shot tennis with Jannik, which isn't gonna work. So, I mean, the range of opponents that Sinner can lose to is very slim, and I think it's best exemplified even by the fact that, well, Rublev beat him last year in Canada, right? And that was when Sinner was struggling physically. And who has he lost to since Jannik Sinner? Carlos Alcaraz twice, and that's it. So, yeah, I mean, the answer very much could be nobody, pretty much.
Yeah, I was just kept going down the list. I got to about number 80 in the world, and I couldn't really, on clay especially, funny enough, because as I say, I thought of maybe Berrettini on grass or Mensik on a quick court, especially a hard one. But as I was looking at these guys, the good guys on clay, that were in the ATP ranking, say in the top 50, they're all sort of solid sort of players, like Rublev, like I'm looking at Kecmanovic right now. I'm looking at Borges. These are all none of these Baez. These are all sort of, possibly top 25 on the surface. I think Baez could certainly give himself as a shout as being one of the 25 best players on the world on clay, but not going to lay a glove on.
He would win 4 games against Jannik if they played tomorrow, or maybe even less. Yeah,
I mean, that loss that Fran had, I thought was quite demoralizing for the tennis world in a way, and that was much more comfortable than I expected, especially as Jannik had barely played any tennis at that point. I think he played 2 matches. Maybe.
It wasn't that easy, but it probably gets easier if they play in a month or so. But yeah, I mean, even though it's not his favorite surface, clay, obviously it's also a surface which like extends the edge between players, right? If you're going to throw somebody in on a grass court, there's always a chance that the margins are just going to get a little closer. So
yeah, like a volley.
I agree with the Mensik Berrettini rounds and stuff like that.
6 and 3. Damien did just highlight one of the wins that Rublev had, Vanch. I mean, can you see something? Can you look into your crystal ball and say, look, this could happen in a parallel universe and Andre emerges the winner? Or to be honest with you, right now, we're just hoping for some kind of competitive match and maybe even a competitive set. If we get to a tie break, which is damning for Rublev and obviously where we are with Jannik right now, Vanch.
Yeah, I'm struggling to see what Rublev does, particularly anything better than Sinner. There isn't really anything I could come up with other than Rublev can play him close for a set or two, and then the thing is that then Rublev is just going to get really frustrated because Sinner is just going to just do everything he does a little bit better than him, and then the margin will just go up. Yeah. So I'm kind of expecting like straight sets, but one relatively tighter set, like maybe a 7-5 or a 6-4, 7-6, that kind of a thing. Like they played in Australia, and it was like Rublev played about as well as he can play. Like I don't think Rublev can play better than he did in the Australian Open quarterfinal that they played against each other. That was like peak Andre Rublev, and he didn't win a single set. So
yeah, it was a 3-setter that felt closer though. If I remember that one, I think Jannik was a bit ill during one of the sets.
Right, and he had like a 5-2 lead in the second set tiebreak, if I recall. And there were some moments, some chances because he was taking a little bit more risk. He was going bigger on the second serve. He was going bigger on his backhand down the line. He was just being a little bit braver, but just mostly from the baseline, right? Because he doesn't really like to come forward and he doesn't have a ton of variety, obviously. So it's just going to be play as big as you can from the baseline, play closer to the lines, and just hope that maybe Sinner's a little bit off in the beginning and he isn't quite finding his range, and then maybe there's a chance to win a set, but it's going to be slim. And plus, Andre didn't get to play his third round, so that can either help him or hurt him.
Yeah, I mean, at least it's something. That's a curveball in itself, if you like, and that might mean.
Definitely, he didn't have set points in the breaker since it was 7-5.
Yeah,
maybe he had them before, but
yeah,
I mean,
that match the one in Australia. It was also, we talk about post puke Sinner, but it was also pre Grand Slam winning machine Sinner. So there was still
like 3 matches pre. Yeah,
it was 3 matches. But I was thinking to myself, I wanted a Yannick Novak semi-final, so that would be competitive. I feared an Andre
before the break.
Heavy loss in the Australian.
It was a great match. It was a great match from Rublev, honestly.
Yeah, it was. He played some of the best tennis I've seen him play in a Grand Slam quarterfinal, and he still came up.
Yeah, I mean that level might have won him a quarterfinal or two, but it wasn't good enough to beat Yannick that particular
against Francis at the US Open. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking about. I was at that.
Marin at the here Paris. Yeah,
Marin Cilic. Yeah, because that was a 5-setter, I think, with a 5th set tiebreak that went the way of Marin in 2022. But I think that's 3 nods for Yannick Sinner win, and probably also in straight sets. All right, let's move over to the women. I've pinned a Discord chat thing, so you can all join that and argue with each other about tennis there. But you're also welcome to argue about tennis in the live chat as well, as long as you keep it reasonably respectful. Okay, over on the women's side today, which would have been the bottom half, I think, we will have had Mira Andreeva kicking things off with a straight sets win over Vondrousova, and also Kasatkina winning in straight sets over Paula Badosa. Both, I don't know, the Badosa one disappointed me a little bit, Vanch.
Yeah, at the same time, I mean, Paula is still just coming back a little bit from her. I mean, the Kasatkina matchup has always been a little bit brutal for Paula. I mean, even though last year they had a very good match at Wimbledon and all that, it's just that Kasatkina is just very, very much the kind of player that just doesn't give you the same ball over and over again. So Badosa is not really in much of a rhythm, and she's having to kind of create a lot more pace off the ground on her own. And sometimes that results in a little bit more errors. And I think like she's just a more natural mover, I guess, on the surface as well. Like Badosa, even though she's from Spain and stuff, I think she's much more comfortable moving on hard courts.
Okay.
And I kind of saw that in this match as well. Like when she was forced to like kind of slide in the corners, she wasn't as great at it as like recovering back into the middle pretty quick as Kasatkina was, because Kasatkina is pretty fast around the court and she constructs points in this like very clever way where she's always mixing it up. So I think that caused Badosa some trouble. She's able to protect her second serve a lot better on clay than she is on hard court, certainly. So it was a little surprise the first set went as easy as it did, but at the same time, it's still early in Paula's comeback, and she did lose a lot of momentum with the back issues. So I still think like it doesn't. I still think overall it's not like a horrible tournament for her. She beat Osaka. She got to the third round here. Like you were to tell me before the tournament she gets to the third round, I was like, yeah, that's about pretty good for where Paula is at. So
yeah, and Mira Andreeva beating Vondrousova, Damien. I think it's another impressive thing. The fact that Mira can just carve through this draw, and we're not surprised by it. But she's barely dropping. I don't think she's dropped a set thus far, and she's not even barely dropping games as it was today, which I guess is another feather in her cap.
Yeah, I mean, I think Mira can definitely beat anybody but Coco Gauff and maybe Sabalenka, maybe Świątek and the likes. But yes, as long as she's not playing Gauff, I'm gonna keep picking her to go deep. She's much better compared to last year. Has gotten much more comfortable at like also attacking as well and being a little more proactive. I think she definitely has a good chance of getting through the draw. Kasatkina matchup is somewhat interesting. She lost their only match in Ningbo maybe last year.
Yeah, Ningbo.
Of course, Mira last year, a lot has changed, definitely, and maybe especially against playstyles like Kasatkina. But, yes, Gina Mindaria has done nothing this season, absolutely nothing, other than Australian Open fourth round and French Open fourth round. So I guess if you want to peak for some events, it should be the slams, absolutely. So yeah, I mean, at least it's a matchup where she indeed can throw some curveballs, as I said earlier. It should be easier for Mirra not to like just fall into the same traps that Badosa did today. But at least it's more interesting than if she was playing somebody like, I don't know. She played Ashlyn Kruger, for example, earlier in the event, and it was pretty close. But
Yeah.
like at this point, you cannot think that a power player like this, like a pretty, some people call her the mini Rybakina, Ashlyn Kruger, like someone like that just does not beat Mirra Andreeva on clay right now. Whereas Kasatkina at least has a unique playstyle. So we're going to have some fun rallies in there. I still think Mirra is probably winning most of them, but at least there's a unique, sort of intriguing factor to it.
Are you calling an upset here, Vanch, or are you also, like me, predicting a win one way or another for Mirra Andreeva?
I would pick Andreeva right now because I just think compared to if this was 12 months ago, I might have been picking Kasatkina, and I might have been picking Putintseva to challenge her a lot more.
Yeah, definitely.
She has so much more power now. She's so much stronger in the legs. Her serve is so much bigger than it was 12 months ago, or even 8 months ago. It's like a completely different level of like just shot quality in terms of like she takes risks now and constructs points and finishes them off with actual power. Whereas before it was much more. She always had like the clever IQ and was thinking and was smart out there, but now she has the power to go with it. And I think against Kasatkina, that's going to be big. Although with Kasatkina's playstyle, like it's going to be a bit more interesting. Like Damien said, it's going to come. There's going to be a lot more cat and mouse points that could go both ways. So I'm pretty curious to see how it looks like this version of Andreeva against a better version of Daria in slams this year. So I think it could be a compelling contest, but I would pick Andreeva against anybody right now except for Coco.
Yeah,
good points as well in the chat about the fact that they're like very good friends, and that often just makes things so wild. And some of you might remember as well that Mirra had a horrible performance against her sister last year, so maybe that's something to look at. That's for her on that occasion at least. She wasn't able to perform in a scenario like that.
I think in the Ningbo final, she was ahead like 3-love or 4-love in the final set and ended up losing like 6 games in a row or something. It was like a very up and down match.
Nurdan likes saying that Andreeva doesn't have power, but
she does now. She does.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's just who doesn't have power. Now Hibino doesn't have power, but come on. She definitely has more of it than Daria Kasatkina.
Yeah. Also, some people in the chat were also remembering the fact that Daria really consoled Mirra after that loss, and Mirra was very upset. I did think it was quite interesting, actually, Jamie, what you just referenced there, that you don't really see Mirra losing to many players that aren't called Coco Gauff. And then you sort of mentioned, obviously, Iga and Arena, but of course, she did beat Arena on the slowest hard court probably in the world in Indian Wells this year. So that Arena had her chances though, and that was another final.
Yeah, it wasn't like a 6-3, 6-3.
No. I think they play that final 10 times, and probably Arena, if they both play the same way as well, probably Arena wins 7 out of those 10. But we'll see. That'll come further down the line. But for now, it's a probable Mirra Andreeva win over Daria Kasatkina. But there's a lot of interesting variables that make this matchup certainly the most difficult one so far for Mirra. Okay, moving on to the next section of the draw. We've got 2 3-set wins. So we lamented some of the lack of excitement on the men's side today, but actually on the women's side, we've had a couple of crackers here, with Jessica Pegula coming from a set down to beat Marketa Vondrousova, former French Open finalist, of course, in 3 sets. Good to see Marketa at least healthy and back on the tour. Then we had Boisson. Am I saying that right? Boisson, probably.
Yeah, Boisson. Yeah.
Boisson winning a 3-set affair over Jacquemont, and that included actually receiving a bagel in the second set. Vanch, any thoughts on either of these 2 matches?
Yeah, the Pegula Vondrousova was interesting to me just because the last time they played at Wimbledon, and I still have that match in my head, and I was wondering if.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, because Pegula was up 4-1 in the third set, and then they closed the roof before the start of the third set, and then the conditions got really heavy. And today the conditions were also pretty heavy. The roof was open, but the conditions were heavy. It was overcast. It was So I thought, okay, that favors Marketa more. But then, and she still was very clever. She used all the drop shots. The lefty serve was causing Pegula problems for like a set and a half. But then Pegula, like, she really upped her aggression. She like started taking the backhand a lot earlier. She was much more willing to, I think, like grind from the back of the court. She wasn't getting as like frustrated. She was reading Marketa's drop shots a lot more. She came to the net a lot by herself. Like she came to the net like 38 times, which is definitely which is definitely like what you have to do so not get spun in Marketa's web. And the start of the third was very crucial because Marketa had 2 break points to go up 2-1, and then Pegula, like, she had one really good serve, and then she won this one really long baseline rally, and then held in that game. And then, Vondrousova has 2 all 40-15, and so I'm thinking, okay, this is going to be a really tight third set. But then Pegula from there was by far the better player the last 4 games. So this was probably Pegula's best win since the Charleston title. So her clay swing before this was kind of mediocre at best. Not really much confidence. But now she's in the 4th round here with a very, on paper, like, she should win this match. But Boisson is also like super tough for the surface. Like, she's on an 8-match win streak, and she has one of those. I think Mario was comparing her to Maria Sakkari, and I could see that comp a little, because she does have a lot of like muscly power, where she just like she muscles the ball pretty big, and she imposes her physicality a lot. It reminds me of like a Peyton Stearns that way. Also, the forehand is like super heavy. But I don't know if it's like I don't know if she's like ready for the consistency that Pegula will have at her, because Giacomo, players like that she's played so far in the first week, they're a lot more up and down, and Pegula has this like base level of consistency that I think probably be too much. So,
do you think the same as well, Damien, that Pegula will just have too much for Boisson?
I mean, I just don't think that Boisson will be able to hold up physically. Today she was already just living on I don't even know what.
Adrenaline.
Obviously, it's not like she's come through the qualifying or something like that. She's had a wild card, just 3 matches, but still a pretty new effort, a pretty new tournament for her. I just think she's probably not going to have enough of it in store to defeat Pegula. I thought that whole interaction in the Talking Tennis group chat was funny, because to me, like, whoever was posting that photo, was it James? I don't remember. But that photo of Boisson and saying that something about Sakkari, I think it was just talking like visually. And then Vaj just started talking about it, just analyzing and comparing to Peyton Stearns. I'm sure the guy did not mean, but but nonetheless, I can see it. Yeah, I know what you mean. Obviously, she's been like a very much a feel-good story of the tournament after what happened to her last year, and the fact that she's now able to turn it into a run. Also a win streak, I think, right? Because she won that W75, so it's gonna be like 8 by now. I think that's really a tremendous story, but I think the narrative comes to a close here, very likely. And it's funny also because before the tournament, we were talking about Pegula and Fritz at kind of like the same level, where, they have good draws. So even though we don't consider them to be threats at the moment, who knows? They might actually make it pretty deep. One of them didn't. One of them looks like should make the quarters probably. Except, I don't really think she probably wouldn't beat Andreeva, but making the quarters from given her position, given her like how she was coming into the slam, that would be amazing for Pegula.
Talking of visuals and Boisson, maybe she'll even get an image on the WTA website at some point after this run, and maybe the outline will also mirror her impressive look. Okay, let's move on to the next section of the women's draw. Again, we had at least one of these two, which was a cracker. Madison Keys winning 7-5 in the third over Sofia Kenan. Baptista coming through in straight sets. I had a good feeling for the American, actually, in terms of optimism for her winning that match, and she ended up prevailing 7-6, 6-1. Vanch, do you want to elaborate on either or both of these two encounters?
I think Keys versus Kenan was maybe the most dramatic, most exciting match of the day, because Kenan
match of the tournament.
Yeah, matches of the tournament. Like something you'll look back on, you'll be like, oh yeah, that was a pivotal moment in the championships. And I mean, Keys calendar slam lives on now. But I think 3-love up Kenan was in the third set, And so at this point, I still didn't. Even though Kenan went up 3-love, I'm like thinking he still has a chance here. Like Kenan isn't known for closing out these kind of big wins against top players in a long time. So I still felt like there was going to be some wobble, and it came sure enough at 3-1. And then Keys was just putting herself in positions to come back, get the break, and then but the real drama was probably at 4-5 when she saved those 3 match points. And Kenan missed a backhand return on one of them. The other one they had like a 3 or 4 shot rally, and then Kenan hit a ball in the net. I forget exactly how it went, but the third match point is the one I'll always remember because that's when Keys went for this backhand cross court winner, and she was in a sort of defensive position, but she just went full throttle and pulled the trigger on this one and hit a clean winner. And her backhand had been kind of misfiring throughout the whole match. I think she had made 20 plus unforced errors on that wing, going for like the same shot. And then match point, she just has the courage to like go for it. And it works. She gets out of that game. She serves. She wasn't completely out of the game then. It was like back and forth, deuce side. And then after that, she gets the break. And she still wasn't playing with that much margin, honestly, at 5-all. It was a little unsustainable. But she got the break. And then she served really well in the final game. And it's just like one of those wins that I don't know if she would get if she hadn't won the Australian Open. So for her, it was like, she was so close to getting out of this tournament. So I don't think she wins that match. I don't think she wins that match a year ago, even.
Djokovic just defined her year.
Yeah.
I mean, it defined her Australian Open, I think, in so many respects. And maybe even now will ultimately define her career. And yet we probably never would have used that exact word with her 7-8 months ago. I think I even asked to elaborate on that in Strasbourg quite famously last year, much to her chagrin. But I'm very pleased that she did get over the line in Australia. And she certainly got over the line today. Damien, do you want to elaborate either on this match, which you've described as the match of the tournament, but also Baptiste against Buzas Manero?
Yeah, I'm gonna do a lot of elaborating on Baptiste Buzas Manero. Second match point, by the way, was a 5-shot rally. She was on top from the get-go, and she forces an error from Kenan. But the third one was pretty much the only one that Sofia had anything to say. And first one was a really good kick serve from Madison as well. Yeah, indeed. I think the fact that she's still going for this calendar Grand Slam, she's not thinking about it, but we've talked about it many times that the pressure is off right now. She's basically achieved every single thing that she wanted. And as long as this doesn't get to like ridiculous levels, which is, she wins the French and maybe she's starting to think about some bigger stuff, like either winning the Grand Slam this year or maybe in years to come. Definitely, I think she's playing with a very clean head or a clear head right now. And she was able to keep her cool. Very disappointing for Kenan, as Nurlan said in the chat. I mean, Kenan has had a tremendous season. Like if you compare it to last year, where she had maybe 3 or 4 good matches and was at a very negative win-loss record. Right now, she's actually pulling it off consistently. I think to me, she's been more impressive than in 2020, which I still consider her to be like a very random slam winner. But right now I can kind of see it, right now I'm getting a little bit more like used to the idea that, okay, maybe she wasn't so random after all. And for her to have a chance to get into a slam second week for, after 4 years, I think it was obviously pretty brutal. Was she a little too passive on these match points? Tough to say. I mean, the one that she was on top in, let's say at least a little bit ahead in the rally, obviously Madison finds that ridiculous shot, super flat, 0 net clearance, goes for it, she takes it. That's what she's been doing all year, as you guys said. So Baptiste obviously looks like an opponent she probably will also defeat. And then we'll see, I guess it will be a Gauff or somebody in the next round.
Is it that clear-cut, Vanch, that Keys beats Baptiste?
I think there will be some tricky moments though, because Baptiste, I've been impressed with her all-court game. Like she does have really good, like she comes in, she'll slice approach, she plays a lot of these like fun points. She reminds me a little bit of Frances Tiafoe on the men's side, where she will just like entertain, make it like super fun and flashy. She has like a good slice backhand too. Like she's fun. She's really fun to watch. He's probably has a little too much firepower, I think. Like she's as good as she is right now, and like moving the ball around the court, coming forward, like finishing off points in these like unique ways. I don't think she quite has the firepower to live with Keys from the back yet. But if Keys is a little bit off, and when she's off, she can be really off for a set or a set in a bit, it could get very tricky. Like, and she's playing a fellow American. They probably practice together a ton. So I still think Baptiste has a puncher's chance, but I would be picking Keys.
Yeah, I mean, they've played each other 3 times. Keys has won 2 of those 3. One of them coming in Indian Wells last year. So in a way, that kind of bodes well for both players in a way. In that I think Baptiste can at least make this competitive. They've also played on clay once before in Charleston. That was a very comfortable win, albeit in 2023 for Madison. And the one win for Baptiste coming in 2019 in Washington at the WTA. I think it's a 500, isn't it? Vance, that you'll know very well from working there on the ground last year. Damien, have you got some?
Like 10 years old at the time. I mean, how old is she?
Baptiste isn't that old. No, that's true. Let's have a look to see.
Yeah,
how
it doesn't
old she
surprise
is.
me that she probably got a wild card for DC, just like Francis has been getting them since like 2014, 2015.
Oh, definitely. But like, I think she must have been like 17, 16. I don't know.
Yeah, she's born in 2001, so I think 18. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, 18. Yeah, she was born in 2001. Funny.
Yeah.
Vance,
Anyway, yeah. I mean, it's on Keys's racket. Like, I don't really care what Baptiste is going to do in this match. It's pretty much on whether Madison is gonna have one of her better days or not. Considering this event, she gets like Daria Savil and is just crashing her, for example. I suppose she will be fine, but
it's a good prediction in unnecessary 3 sets. I could see that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that one too.
That sounds good. That sounds good. Yeah.
Let's move on. I think this is the final section. It's of course where we've got the number 2 seed Coco Gauff. So I was thinking just now of the Champions League final of Inter against PSG today, and how one-sided that was. We had plenty of men's matches like that, and perhaps we've got a couple of women's matches that match that right now compared to some of the other epics. Alexandrova winning in straight set 6-2, 6-2 over Kudermetova, and Coco Gauff, the number 2 seed, and many people's tip, of course, to go on to lift the title, overcoming Buskova 6-1 and 7-6. So at least there was something for Coco to think about in that second set. Vance, any thoughts on either of these 2 matches?
I saw much more of the Coco one, and that was similar to Iga versus Christian yesterday, where Buskova played really well in the second set. Like she stepped up her aggression. She was playing with a ton of like just intensity and like consistency. And like the level of play was pretty good when Coco was serving well. When Coco was serving well, though, it still kind of felt like more on her terms, just because she is still a better athlete. She still does get to certain balls that Buskova can't get to. So, to some extent, I still felt like Coco was going to win, but it still required a lot out of her. Like the second set was almost an hour. I think it was an hour 15, hour 20, similar to yesterday. And Buskova had a 5-3 lead, 30 love. But then Gauff just kind of scrapped her way somehow and won like these 3 really long points, and she held serve. And then finally, she was a little bit wobbly on the second serve and forehand in the second set. But then when she cleaned that up, the tiebreak was where she really shined, because she played a really good first point, where she had 2 really good reflex volleys at the net, and then finished it off with a really nice overhead. And then she protected her mini break lead most of the time in the tiebreak, and then came through. But it kind of reminded me of yesterday, where like Coco was pushed the same way like Iga was pushed, and then it was just like, how do you respond? And for her, it was breaking back twice and then playing a good tiebreak. And for Iga, it was saving 6 break points. So I kind of feel like it was a good test, because had it gone 3 sets, it could have been a lot more nerve-wracking. And Coco was getting a little bit more down on herself the first 7 or 8 games, but then she kind of started to calm down, think a bit more clearly, and she has a good draw. Like it's a lot of people are expecting her to either make the final or win it right now.
Well, Damien, I think that maybe Buskova, though, doesn't necessarily have the weapons ultimately to hurt Coco, and maybe that's about as close as she's likely to come up against. But, Vance touched on a word there of aggression, and that's what she's going to face in Alexandrova.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it a good draw. I mean, I would never want to play Alexandrova.
No, I'm not sure. I think Buskova, yes, and probably the preceding matches, but
the woman just wrecks the ball. If she's gonna have a hot day, why not? Obviously, as Jean mentioned, there was a big record, like a very negative record for Alexandrova at some point at slams. So you never really know if she's going to get to that fourth round, but the form this year has been surprisingly consistent. Is there a reality where she just comes out and blasts Gauff off the court? Sure, yeah, why not? This is actually somewhat difficult. I would probably compare it to Anisimova, Sabalenka more or less in the way that, the threat for the top 2 seeds is pretty real in the fourth round. It really gets real.
She has beaten Coco before. I just saw one of their particular encounters came on grass, where Coco won in straight sets. But the other meetings were in, so last year, Coco winning in Berlin in straight sets, with also a match going Coco's way on the hard courts in Beijing. Alexandrova also won on grass the year before in Berlin, and then there was another one on hard. So they've not played on clay before. Probably clay it just tips it a little bit more in Coco's favor, but I don't know if you want to respond to anything that anything that Damien's just said, Vanch.
Yeah, I mean, I could see a world where Alexandrova is just really hot, but the thing is that Coco is just going to make her hit so many balls on clay, and I wonder if, because the longer, the more physical these points get, the more returns Coco gets back into play. I just feel like she will be able to get it on her terms, more so than, for instance, at Dubai, when I think even though Coco won, it was a lot more. I remember this one in 2021. That was a long time ago. And then also the matches on grass. I feel like those are more. That's where it's tougher for Coco to kind of just get the rally set on her terms. But I think on clay, it should be a little bit. It should be a little bit more on Coco's racket. I would be surprised if Alexandrova just stepped up and then just won 3-3 and just blasted Coco off the court. It could happen on a hard court tournament, but I don't know if on clay in these conditions. I feel like Coco is so hard to hit through right now that I would still be backing her. And also Alexandrova hasn't been past this stage, so yeah, I think I almost like the matchup better for her against another bigger hitter. I think Coco against other counterpunchers sometimes can struggle a little bit more. So I guess the threat is always there because Alexandrova does peak against top players all the time, and she's done it against mostly everybody. Swiatek, Sabalenka, Rybakina, Pegula, a lot of the top players. But I'm excited to see this one because they haven't played in a while, and they haven't played on clay.
But we're all just one way or another. Coco's coming through, right, Damien?
I don't think that's necessarily, a given. I mean, are the margins slimmer here for Alexandrova? Yeah, I mean, she needs to be pretty much perfect to win.
Yeah.
But, she has some of these days. There's never a 0% chance for Ekaterina Alexandrova to win a match. That's just not possible, really.
All right. Before we wrap things up, we've gone in depth on the matches tomorrow. We do check out our bunch of videos that have been produced that you can see on our website here, on the YouTube website, I should say. So do check out those for lengthy stuff on the matches. But Vanch, what is the match that you're most looking forward to tomorrow, and why is it Iga Swiatek against Elena Rybakina?
Actually, I don't know. For me, it was a tie between Swiatek and Rybakina and Anisimova and Sabalenka.
Okay.
But yeah, maybe Swiatek and Rybakina just slightly. Mostly because it's very, very compelling. I mean, most of the people, if you were just a neutral fan or you're not the biggest fan of Iga, you would have wanted Ostapenko, right? You would have wanted the Ostapenko Swiatek, and you would have liked that narrative of, can Iga, is it going to be different because it's at RG basically? And is Ostapenko just going to do what she always does? But now that it is Rybakina, it's also easy to get excited about it because their head-to-head is 4-4. Iga's won their last 2 matches. There was a time where, this would have been the most scary matchup for Iga outside of Penko. It's probably still up there, but there's a feeling that Iga has figured out a few things here, and that I just want to see if that actually is the case, though, because Rybakina right now is in good form herself. The tennis that she's been playing in Strasbourg and here is much cleaner and much more what we're used to seeing from her. The returns and the serves and the way she's everything's flowing off of her racket is pretty much like old Rybakina. So I'm curious to see how it plays out. But I would just like Iga's chances here. I think some people are maybe exaggerating the extent to which how close this match could be. Like I see some separation for Iga in this one.
Okay.
Maybe.
The narrative has moved slightly in the last 7 days, which in a way actually for Rebecca as well, it's also moved as well. Bearing in mind she won in Strasbourg and obviously has reached this stage. But Damon is smiling and shaking his head at various utterances, particularly from me. I think it's
no, that was just me thinking about my refrigerator.
Oh no, but there was something before when I said, why is it going to be Swiatek, Rebecca, and the most exciting match tomorrow?
Okay.
And I think you might have been thinking about Musetti, Rune.
I mean, yeah, that's the best match of the tournament, 100%. Also, Swiatek Rybakina, just not that interested in because I already know what will happen. So,
well, what will happen? I know you mentioned it last night, but go on.
Iga Swiatek will win. I think that indeed this was the most difficult matchup for her, like a couple of years ago. Obviously, Rybakina has beaten her clay once via retirement, once on slick indoor courts. But yeah, like the serve return difference definitely was pretty hurtful for her, and it's still going to be hurtful. But at the same time, having seen their two most recent matches and how she was finally able to start moving Rybakina a lot and just like, use the angle potential that her game has, I think on a court like this, she's going to have even more of that. I think she's been pretty convincing so far, and that she's just playing very different tennis, even a brand of tennis, I guess, on the courts in Paris. And I have a strong feeling she's going to take this one, which I very much understand that it could just be wrong. But I do indeed have I gaslit myself into thinking that this match is done. I feel like this was very similar Australia 2023 when they played. And I just remember saying with all the content, there's no point watching it. Rybakina's just going to kill her. And I gaslit myself into doing that, but actually it turned out right. Hopefully, I mean, for me at least, it's going to turn out right again. But either way, I am way more excited about Musetti and Rune. When I'm going to be watching Swiatek Rybakina, it's going to be like, okay, are my suspicions confirmed or not?
One thing I'm very confident in predicting, okay? Tomorrow it's not going to be a letdown on either side. I'm excited by some of these matches. Damien, why are you laughing?
No, I'm laughing about just the comments,
Oh, okay, sorry.
When I'm laughing, usually it's just the comments.
Yeah,
I'm not excited about... the only match out of the four on the screen that I am excited for is Musetti Rune.
I'm excited.
The other three, I'm not even going to touch. I'm not even going to watch a ball.
I'm excited by the other three for narratives, for the fact that we're going to have either Francis Tiafoe or Daniel Altmaier in a French Open quarterfinal. To me is wild. What I probably don't want to watch is their quarterfinal. But I'm very excited by the fact that Daniel Altmaier, who couldn't win Seville last year, didn't want to speak to me because he was upset about offending other German journalists who he hadn't spoken to all year. And yet I still like him and love that match, of course, he had against Yannick Sinner. Francis Tiafoe being in a French Open quarterfinal to me is nuts. So that is fun. Popper in a sort of a renaissance. Tommy Paul, I think, is very much worthy of a place in the round 4 or quarterfinals. And Shelton Alcaraz, yes, it could be a straight sets win for Carlos, but both are fun people to watch playing tennis on any surface. And I think that could be fun as well, albeit it may well be a comfortable win. Yet there'll be some highlights. There'll be some fun stuff going on. And Musetti Rune, I don't think needs to be sold at all. And then on the women's side, I think all four are fun for one reason or another. Vanch? On anything I've said,
to be honest,
Shelton Alcaraz and the women as well.
This is the lineup that I'm the most excited by in the last 9 days, like by far.
Yeah.
One, because we only have 2 courts, and I don't have to have like a million screens and and like my attention span is going to be.
Now you can watch doubles as well.
Yes, sure, but I'd rather focus on these 2 courts, and then I can watch. And it's not like I will get to watch Musetti and Rune in full, and likely there won't be maybe there'll be the end of one of these matches on the second court that I'll have to keep up with. But for the most part, I could just enjoy that, and I could enjoy Alcaraz Shelton, because no matter what, I agree with John. Yeah, no matter for the most part who they play and where they play, it's pretty exciting most of the time. So So I'm excited by that. I'm excited by Anisimova and Sabalenka. I hope that really delivers. And Swiatek Rybakina, I'm pretty much more or less confident in an Iga win. But it could get like I'm confident it'll still be good. It'll still be a close match, but I think Iga comes through it.
I can't see all 4 of these matches on the screen failing to deliver. You know, I can see Paulini Svitolina being 7-5 in the third. I can see 1 or 2 shocks maybe on this screen. You know, Anisimova maybe beating Sabalenka or Samsonova, arguably upsetting Zheng, and and maybe Rybakina goes 5-4 ahead into the head-to-head there, and Iga's troubles come back to haunt her, or Iga stamps her authority not just on the match tomorrow but also the tournament. So I think there's so much to look forward to on both sides, and it just cannot. This is something you can clip and replay tomorrow when we see a bunch of duds. It just cannot fail to deliver. It just can't. It's just impossible.
The women's, I'm giving 2 thumbs up, sure. But in terms of the men's, thank you. Sorry, I won't be watching that until Musa Tiruna. I also think you have a very low gauge for like what's nuts. If Tiafoe getting to a Roland Garros quarterfinal is nuts, that's, I don't know, like getting to a Roland Garros quarterfinal, Enrique Rocha getting there, that would be nuts. But Frances Tiafoe. By the way, also, one message from me. In 6 hours and 39 minutes, polls will open for the presidential election in Poland.
Oh, okay, I thought you were going to say something about
if anyone watching is Polish, go vote, but only if you vote for the same candidate as me. Thank you.
Yes, it reminded me of a joke I saw on Facebook in 2019, which was a message for all Tories. The polls have now closed, so you don't need to go to the... that was 24 hours before the polls opened, I think. That, saying the polls have closed, so you don't need to go to your polling station now, and enjoy your Thursday. It's a curious thing that in the UK, we have our elections on a Thursday. In the US, they are on a Tuesday, at least the national ones. And I think all pretty much ballots, I think, in the US are on a Tuesday. And the rest of the world does it on Saturdays and Sundays. Interestingly, in Mexico, and I don't think it's the only country, you're not allowed to buy alcohol on the day of the presidential election. And yet what you see is images across all the tabloids in Mexico on the Saturday with them just like huge crates of beer. So they're all ready to start drinking anyway.
When I see the exit poll results, I might have to buy some alcohol.
Well, we'll see. Anyway, talking politics done, talking tennis also done for today. Last ball drops and last ball or last mic drop is going to happen now. Vanch, big thanks for joining me today.
Yep, thank you.
Damien, tomorrow is going to deliver. All right. And it might even be Shelton Alcaraz.
I hope so. I'm not going to ride Joao Fonseca because I don't remember if it actually disqualifies my card. But it would be pretty funny, to add something tennis-oriented, I guess, posted on Twitter. But I'm probably not going to do it. I know. When it comes to elections, I'm just a chill boy. I do it like they intended, you know? I do it like missionary voting. Anyway, thank you. Yes, it was a fantastic episode, and it's going to be a fantastic day of tennis tomorrow.
On that bombshell, you know the drill. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.